I'm sort of sitting here procrastinating on how boring my background is and how there's like creases in my freshly washed shirt and all these different factors, and I'm like, oh, it's a bit ironic considering the topic of this video, because this video is all about how to start. And my main point, like the number one piece of advice I always say is you just have to start. So here I am, just starting. I've got my juice, we are good to go. I really need to curb this habit of drinking juice though, because I just don't think the sugar's good for my skin, even though I think it's sugar-free juice. I don't know, tastes good though. But yeah, I just need to learn how to drink water. We'll get there eventually. So yes, how to start. I already have a video on my channel like this, which I made way back when, and I just wanted to remake it to try to make it a little bit more succinct, because that's definitely something that I've tried to develop in terms of my own personal development on this channel, is just being a little bit more succinct, making my videos a little bit shorter, because they used to be hella long, and I wanted to add a few different points in as well, because I think it just needs a little bit of a zhuzh up with some things that I've found that have helped people over the years. So my number one thing, as I already mentioned, is you just have to start. If you're one of these people like me, I love buying a new notebook, making notes, trying to learn as much as I can about a topic and understand it fully before I start doing it. And all that is procrastination at its finest. Literally, the best thing that you can do is just get started. Just get that ball rolling, and I promise you, you will learn so much doing it versus trying to be prepared for it. You will learn so much along the way that is going to help you, not only in terms of the general idea of what you're doing, but knowing how it applies to you and your lifestyle, that it is going to be the most beneficial thing. You can prepare and try to learn as much as possible, but the biggest benefits are going to come from literally just starting. And I think this point is even more important now, more than ever, because of the abundance of information there is out there. You could drive yourself absolutely insane trying to learn about all these different factors that create a calorie deficit, or which exercises you should do, or which career you should go into, or whatever it is, you know, relationship advice, whatever it is that you're trying to get started with. You could spend so long driving yourself around the bend trying to learn and understand what's right for you, and you're never going to truly know until you actually just start. So just get stuck in, accept that there's going to be failures, that there's going to be mistakes, and that is completely normal. And you would have these regardless of whether you had years and years of preparation and knew exactly what you were doing, or you didn't have any. It's really hard to take that first step, but I promise you, once that ball is rolling, your motivation tends to build up as well. Now, of course, that's all well and good, but we kind of want to know what we're trying to achieve, but more importantly, why we are trying to achieve it. So we're talking about goal setting here. And although it's good to have goals and to write them down, and there's been lots of science to suggest that if you write your goals down, you're more likely to succeed, I think it's really important to actually spend a lot of time understanding why you are motivated to reach that goal, but like really understanding why, and also making sure that it's important to you. And something I always sort of think about myself is, if nobody was watching what I did, if I didn't have any social media, I didn't have friends or family that saw anything that I do, would I still do the things I do? Would I still do calisthenics? Would I still go rock climbing? Would I still go hiking? And I know that if the answer to that question is yes, I would still do that, then it's a worthwhile pursuit for me to do it and to maintain it, even on the days where I don't feel motivated to do it. Because the reason I'm doing it is for me. And it's really important that the reason that you're doing what you're doing is for you and not necessarily for an external source. The people pleaser in me feels like that sounds very harsh, but I just want you to make sure that the reason that you are doing something is important to you and that you have a strong reason why, because that's what you're going to fall back on in the times where your motivation is going to drop, because that will happen. You need to have a strong, powerful reason why you're motivated to do this to keep you going through those hard times. And it doesn't matter what that why is necessarily, as long as it matters to you and it's important to you. So take some time to think about what you'd like to achieve, but more importantly, why you want to achieve that and why it's important to you. And remember that your goals and your why probably will change. We'd expect them to change. They are going to fluctuate, and that's totally okay. So expect that that might happen, and you might have to reassess these every couple of months or even every couple of weeks. Who knows? Your goals and your motivations are constantly going to change because your life is constantly changing too. So just be aware that that happens, and that's okay. Nothing to be afraid of or ashamed of. This is totally normal. And it's so great to have the self-awareness to say, hold on a second, I think my goals are shifting a little bit, and maybe this is more important to me now, and this is why it's important to me, and then be able to pursue that. Now, the next point is something that I think you develop over time, not just when you start out, but it's something to be aware of when you're starting out, and that is that you need to learn to trust yourself and trust your body, and also tap into what your body is telling you. It's constantly adapting to the inputs that we give it. It's constantly giving us feedback, and ultimately it just wants to protect us. And if you can tap into the messages that it's giving you, then you can really tune into what's going to work for you and work out how you can make this into a consistent lifestyle which is as individual as you are. I often say this, but try to look at yourself like a bit of an experiment. You know, does something make you feel good? Does it make you feel bad? Does it take away your energy? Does it give you energy? Do you feel positive after an experience? Do you feel negative? I say this quite a lot, sort of seeing yourself as a bit of experiment. And I think it's something that I have got better at as time has gone on. But it's really interesting to look at something and say, oh, did that make me feel better, or did it make me feel worse? Did it give me energy? Did it take my energy away? Do I feel like this had a positive impact on me or a negative impact? It could be literally anything. It could be the people that you interact with. It could be your goals. It could be what training you're doing, what you're eating, you know, sleep habits, all these different things. But if you can start to assess how your body is responding to certain situations or certain inputs that you're giving it, maybe you can start to construct a life that really works well for you. But again, this is something to be aware of and not to be afraid of, and to be able to use as a tool as time goes on to make your journey easier. Uh-oh, battery. All right, new battery, so we're good. So the next thing I want to talk about is information overload. Now, I've already kind of mentioned that there is a lot of information nowadays, but I don't think we realize just how much conflict or self-doubt that can cause on a daily basis, even on a subconscious level. I see on a daily basis the overwhelm and the self-doubt and the self-criticism that this information overload causes. And so I think it's really important, regardless of what you're trying to achieve, when you're just starting out and you're at that delicate stage, to try to avoid that information overload as much as possible. And of course, it's not just information either. Sometimes it's what we deem as motivation. And what we don't realize is subtly it's causing us to be critical of ourselves, to doubt what we're doing, and to really question our methods. Now, this is not to say completely avoid any information that you could potentially come across, because that's just ridiculous. It's just not going to happen. But you can definitely manage to an extent what you're exposed to. If we're talking about social media, try to curate a bit of a feed that's going to benefit you in some way, whether that is stuff that's not related to what you're doing but makes you feel more positive, or trying to minimize the amount of noise that you're getting exposed to. So that might include unfollowing people, even unfollowing people that you like their content. You don't have to do it forever, you can just do it temporarily. But if you feel like it's something that's going to benefit you in terms of just quieting that noise a little bit, then it might be something to consider. I kind of ran this experiment a little bit myself, because I find, even though I work in health and fitness, I follow very little health and fitness content because it often leads to my own self-doubt and self-criticism. So I try to curate my Instagram feed to be things that actually make me happy. And when I say curate it, what I mean is I spend time looking at the content that I enjoy looking at, which has got nothing to do with health and fitness, so that Instagram will continue to recommend that content to me. And this is my explore page at the moment. It's basically anything to do with nails, plants, traveling, crafting, all that sort of stuff. Literally, that's all I see. Oh, and wedding dresses, because I am wedding obsessed. Even though personally, I'm not fussed about having a wedding, I love watching Say Yes to the Dress. Like, love it. Such a good show. So basically, I curate my Instagram feed through that, when I go on YouTube, the videos that I will often get recommended and I watch regularly are things like shopping hauls, makeup tutorials, things that actually aren't really that relevant to my life because I can't dress myself and I don't know how to do my makeup, but I just find them so relaxing to watch and I just love it. And I feel like they bring positivity to my day rather than making me feel more negative. So essentially this point is about being aware of what you're being exposed to and whether that's having a positive or negative impact on you, and maybe curating that a little bit to quieten the noise so you can focus on what's going to be best for you. It really wouldn't be one of my videos if I didn't mention the C word. Consistency. You want to focus on consistency, not intensity. It's very tempting when you're just starting out to go pedal to the metal, to all guns blazing, try and do everything at once, but I promise you, it's not the best way to go about it. It will become really hard to sustain, and it just doesn't set the groundwork for consistency and therefore sustainability, which is ultimately what we want to achieve. I feel like this is actually quite a hard one to action because when you start something, you're really excited, your motivation tends to be quite high to actually get going and you want to put all your energy into it. So you want to go in with full intensity, but it's better to try to hold yourself back a little bit and to take one small step, just get that ball rolling. Try to work on getting used to those changes so those habits then become pretty much ingrained in you. So if you've read Atomic Habits by James Clear, you'll know about habit stacking and being able to build up slowly in terms of working towards your goal. And that's essentially what you want to do. It's interesting because as a coach, I tend to do this with my clients and it always takes them back a bit. And sometimes in a consultation, I'm really trying to understand what people's motivations are, but also what their expectations are. And then I suggest to them, maybe if your expectation is that we would be doing this in terms of you would like to start tracking your calories, to go into a calorie deficit, to start working on all these different habits, to do exercise 4 or 5 times a week, going from nothing. What if I said to you, I simply want you to keep a meal diary and do some more steps this week? Would that be okay with you? And I think often that makes us feel like we're just not going to make progress, or that we're choosing to take it slow when we could be doing more. But what you really need to do is shift your thinking in terms of, how am I going to make this as easy and enjoyable as possible so that I can sustain it and stay consistent? And that's what you really, really want to achieve, I promise you, because it's going to be so much more enjoyable 4, 5, 6 months down the track doing that, rather than being in this constant cycle of starting, it being too hard, eventually going back to the beginning. Starting, it being too hard, going back to the beginning. Trust me when I say this, it is not a race. I lost weight 7, 8 years ago, something like that now, and I am very much still in that race. So it is definitely a marathon and not a sprint, because I don't think it's ever going to end. All right, we're on to the last 2 points now. I think this video is definitely shorter than the original one, but the next point is, and you've heard me say this so many times, but track your damn progress. You need to track your progress, and not just in one way. And it doesn't matter what you're trying to achieve. There are so many different methods of tracking your progress to make sure that you are going in the direction that you want to go. It's important that you do have multiple ones. I will run over the ones for fat loss just because that's what a lot of people are watching my videos for. Often people think of just the scale weight as being the main dictator of whether you're making progress or not, but there are so many other things that come into it. Let's talk about what your energy levels are like, what your sleep quantity and what your sleep quantity and quality are like, what your relationships are like, what your exercise is feeling like, whether your clothes fit better, whether you're standing better, whether you're moving better, whether you have lost centimeters in physical measurements versus just on the scales, whether you're better at being hydrated on a more regular basis. There is loads of ways that you're making progress, and just because you're not hitting one doesn't mean you're not progressing in another area. And the reason this is important is because there will come a time where you don't see progress in one of those areas and you feel like, I'm just not making progress, this is a waste of time, I'm gonna pack it in. And that's when you need to tap into all these other areas and say, okay, I need to switch on my rational brain here. Yes, this may have not progressed this week, this month, whatever it might be, but my gosh, has this progressed? I'm sleeping so much better. And that means that I'm not as stressed. And because I'm not as stressed, I'm managing my appetite a lot better. And I have more energy when I go to train. And I've been having more energy to put into my relationships with my friends or my family or my partner. All these different factors are so, so important. So please track your progress in multiple different ways and realize that making progress in one area is not the be all and end all by any means. And the last one, probably the hardest one, coming from a true overthinker, is don't overthink it. It's hard. If you're changing a lot of things about your lifestyle, about your day-to-day actions, whatever it is that you're doing, it's hard, and you're going to be 100% your own worst critic. Sometimes it's nice to have someone to call you out, whether that's a friend, a family member, a coach, just to help you tap into the rational side of your brain, because your pesky irrational side tends to be the one that speaks a little bit louder. But you can do it on your own as well. You just need to be able to give yourself some breathing space sometimes and say, maybe I'm just having a bad day. And sometimes I'm a fan of just having a day where you do mope and you do sort of wallow in those feelings, and then you wake up the next day and you think, let's go, like we can keep doing this, and not overthinking it, not being so self-critical, not constantly questioning everything you're doing and whether it's working, but trust the process. Trust that you are doing the right thing, remembering that this is a long-term thing we're trying to achieve here. So we're not in a race. It doesn't have to be constant progress every single day, and you can fail, and that is okay, because we're expecting that you'll fail, and out of failure will always come something that you learn. So just being okay with these things and somewhat enjoying the journey, because life is too short to not have a little bit of fun along the way. So don't be so self-critical. Don't overthink it. One huge thing that can really help here is just setting up your environment or surrounding yourself with things or people that just make you feel a little bit more positive or a bit more motivated, because honestly, it makes such a huge difference. But overall, just try not to be so critical of yourself, because the chances are you're doing an absolutely amazing job. Right guys, that is it. I hope you've enjoyed this video and that it's helped in some way. I don't actually know how long it was because the battery died, but I think it's a little bit shorter. If you have any questions, drop them down below as always. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next video, and I hope you have a beautiful day.